Captain Elias Rourke stood motionless on the bridge of the UEE's Vanguard, hands clasped behind his back as he stared into the swirling tunnel of hyperspace beyond the viewport. The steady hum of the ship's engines vibrated through the hull, a rhythmic pulse that had become second nature to the crew, a constant reminder that they were moving, always moving, through the vast emptiness of space. The distress signal had come hours earlier, a human encryption, unmistakable. A ship stranded in the Nix expanse, a region so uncharted and desolate that it should have been lifeless. But it wasn't. Entering Vero's system in 30 seconds, Lieutenant Carter Hale announced, fingers gliding over the navigation console. The star lines ahead began to distort, the final warning before re-entry. "I don't like this," muttered Corporal Devon J.O. at the comm station. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Just the name alone, Varos? Sounds like the kind of place that swallows ships whole. "Desolate, rocky, and entirely inhospitable," added Dr. Serena Vaughn, the ship's medical officer. "Reminds me of my last camping trip." A few chuckles rippled across the bridge, even Rourke allowing a brief smirk. They had been through enough together to know that humor was the best defense against the abyss. "Focus," Commander Tessa LeBlanc said, her voice level but commanding. Instantly the levity faded. "We have a distress call to answer. Every system on high alert. If this is a trap, we're not walking into it blind." "Aye, sir," came the firm responses. Zio adjusted his headset, while Gunnery Officer Marcus Quinn double-checked the ship's weapon diagnostics. Across the bridge, Engineer Lena Pierce muttered to herself, monitoring the reactor's fluctuating output. "You think this one's legit?" she called over her shoulder, her tone more skeptical than worried. Rourke turned to face her. "We don't jump into uncharted space for ghost signals, Pierce. If this is some kind of joke, someone's getting court-martialed." A few chuckles spread through the crew, but there was a tension beneath the amusement. They all felt it. This wasn't like the usual misfires or false alarms. Something about this signal felt too deliberate. "Dropping in 3, 2, 1. Zio counted down. The swirling tunnel of hyperspace shattered into the cold, endless black of real space. Stars emerged, scattered like shattered glass. Ahead loomed Veros Prime, a desolate world of jagged cliffs and merciless dust storms, and orbiting the planet was the source of the Signala solitary human ship, barely intact. "There it is," Hale murmured. "Signals coming in strong, that's our ship." Rourke stepped closer to the viewport, his jaw tightening. The vessel's aegis was clearly human in design, but it was in ruin. Scorch marks and debris scarred its hull, and it drifted, dark and lifeless, save for the faint, pulsing distress beacon. "Visual confirmation?" he asked. Hale nodded grimly. "Confirmed. The aegis is completely powered down. No external systems online. If anyone's alive, they're not making contact." "Hail them," Rourke ordered. "Let them know we're here." "Yes, sir." Zio tapped his console, sending out the transmission. Silence followed, save for the static crackling through the bridge's speakers. "No response." Hale frowned. "Trying another frequency." Rourke exchanged a look with Quinn, who was already pulling up tactical overlays. "They're still broadcasting the distress call, but no response on any channel," Zio confirmed, adjusting dials with growing frustration. "Hold us steady at 2 clicks out," Rourke commanded. "Open a channel and keep it clean. If they're alive, they need to hear us." Zio nodded, leaning forward as he sent another transmission. "TSS Aegis, this is the UA's Vanguard responding to your distress call. Do you read?" Static. Then nothing. Zio shook his head. "Still nothing, sir." "Keep trying," Rourke ordered, eyes locked on the dark vessel. "Scan the ship. I want to know what we're dealing with." The Vanguard scanners swept over the derelict ship. Data scrolled across the monitors. "No life signs detected," Zio reported, frowning. "But the planet's atmosphere is throwing off our readings. Hull integrity at 30%. No active systems. Could be comm damage," Vaughn suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. Pierce scoffed softly from her console. "Or they fried their systems trying to survive." "Let's not speculate," Rourke said. "Quinn, status, weapons online and standing by." "No hostiles in the area," Quinn reported. Then, after a moment's hesitation, he added, "But, Captain, something feels off about this." Rourke exhaled sharply. Agreed. Something gnawed at him. The Aegis was dead and the water too dead. Yet its beacon had been transmitting flawlessly, as if activated with military precision. "Captain," Hale spoke suddenly, his voice strained. "The distress signal just cut out." Rourke's head snapped toward him. "What do you mean, cut out?" "It's gone, sir," Hale said. "No warning, no interference, just gone." Before Rourke could react, Seo cursed under his breath. "Contact! Multiple signatures incoming at high velocity." The Vanguard jolted violently. Alarms blared across the bridge as the tactical display lit up. A fleet of Vorak warships, their sleek, insectoid designs glinting menacingly, dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, and they were already charging their weapons. "Defensive maneuvers," Rourke barked. "Raise shields and return fire." The Vanguard shuddered as the first volleys struck, plasma fire slashing through the void. The Vorak attacked like predators, sensing blood, overwhelming in number and strategy. "Evasive pattern Delta 5, Hale shouted, fingers flying across the controls. Zio's voice was tight. "Sir, comms are jammed." The Vanguard's guns roared to life, sending streaks of retaliatory fire into the Vorak ranks, but they were outnumbered badly. One by one, their systems began to fail. "Shields at 30%, Quinn shouted. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Vaughn braced against her station as the ship lurched. "We can't take much more of this." Rourke clenched his jaw. They were outmatched, outgunned, but surrender was not an option. "Divert all power to the engines," he commanded. "We need to break free." Hale rerouted power, sparks raining from the consoles. The Vanguard surged forward for a moment. It seemed they might escape. Then the Vorak unleashed their full arsenal. The Vanguard's shields collapsed. Explosions tore through the hull. Lights flickered. Consoles shorted out. Rourke was thrown against the railing. He gasped for breath as alarms blared around him. "Sir!" Zayo's voice was distant, shaking. Blood streaked his temple. "We're going down." The Vanguard spiraled toward Varos Prime, fire trailing from its crippled engines. The last thing Rourke saw before the ship hit the surface was the Vorak fleet, watching, their victory assured. Darkness. Captain Elias Rourke awoke to the stench of burning metal and the weight of debris pressing against his chest. Every breath was a struggle, his ribs screaming in protest. He blinked against the thick haze of dust and smoke, his vision swimming as he tried to make sense of his surroundings. The UEE's Vanguard was gone. What remained of it lay in twisted ruins across the barren surface of Varos Prime, jagged shards of metal, shattered consoles, and the lifeless bodies of his crew strewn amidst the wreckage. Rourke clenched his jaw, forcing his mind to focus. He shifted, pain radiating through his side as he freed himself from the debris. Blood trickled down his face, warm against the freezing wind that howled through the canyons. Then movement. In the distance, Vorak soldiers were scavenging through the wreckage, their insectoid forms silhouetted against the planet's twin suns. Their bioluminescent armor pulsed with eerie light as they moved with precision, methodically searching for survivors. Not to rescue them, to eliminate them. Rourke's fingers brushed against something solid, a jagged shard of metal, sharp enough to be used as a weapon. He wrapped his hand around it, forcing himself to his feet. His body protested, his vision blurred from exhaustion and blood loss. But he didn't stop. He was alive. And that was their mistake. Rourke moved low to the ground, slipping between the scattered wreckage as the Vorak patrols continued their sweep. His pulse pounded in his ears, his grip tightening around the crude blade in his hand. He needed to find supplies. A weapon. A plan. Near what remained of the engineering bay, he spotted an emergency survival kit partially buried beneath a collapsed bulkhead. He reached for it, biting back a groan as pain shot through his broken ribs. With trembling fingers, he cracked it open, revealing its meager Contensa nano-bandage, a combat knife, a flare gun, and a single-dose pain suppressant. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He pressed the nano-bandage against a deep gash in his side, feeling the fabric tighten as the device sealed the wound. It wouldn't heal him, but it would keep him alive. He downed the pain suppressant, forcing himself to push forward. He wasn't ready to die. Not yet. Ahead, a canyon wall loomed, its jagged rocks offering a path to higher ground. If he could reach it, he might find shelter, a place to regroup, to think. He moved quickly, boots crunching softly against the dusty soil. The Vorak patrols were thorough, their movements disciplined, but they were overconfident. They assumed there were no survivors. Rourke intended to prove them wrong. Hours passed. The twin suns of Varus Prime dipped below the horizon, plunging the landscape into deep shadows. From his perch high above the wreckage, Rourke watched as the Vorak soldiers methodically dismantled what was left of the vanguard. They weren't just searching for bodies. They were looking for something. Rourke's grip tightened on the knife he had salvaged. He scanned the wreckage below, eyes landing on a damaged Vorak communicator, lying near the remains of a downed enemy soldier. If he could reach it, he might be able to intercept their transmissions, understand their movements. His instincts told him one thing. This was no ordinary attack. The Aegis's distress signal, the trap, the Vorak's systematic dismantling of the wreckage. They weren't just here to kill him. They were after something bigger. Taking a slow breath, Rourke descended from the cliffs, keeping to the shadows. He moved with practiced stealth, his footsteps muffled by the shifting dust beneath him. Every second was a gamble. The Vorak patrols circling the wreckage, their weapons raised, their guttural chatter sharp and deliberate. He reached the fallen Vorak soldier and knelt, his fingers closing around the alien communicator. He flicked it on, its interface flashing with unfamiliar symbols. The words meant nothing to him, but the patterns, the rhythm of the transmissions were clear. They were searching for something buried in the wreckage. Not a survivor, a secret. Rourke exhaled, his mind racing. He had one chance. If he could get to the Aegis, maybe he could find the answer before the Vorak did. Moving swiftly, he slipped deeper into the ruins of the vanguard, salvaging whatever he could: a damaged Vorak rifle, a belt of alien explosives, and a secondary power cell that still held a faint charge. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. He reached a half-functioning console, its flickering screen a dying ember in the darkness. Working fast, he rerouted what little power remained, bypassing the ship's shattered systems. A signal, a distress call. He encoded it using an outdated fleet cipherone only human forces would recognize. It wouldn't be strong. It might not even reach them in time. But it was something. The signal pulsed weakly, cutting through the void. Help might be days away. Weeks. But at least now, they knew he was alive. A sharp sound snapped him from his thoughts. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, close. Rourke killed the console's power and slipped back into the shadows, gripping the Vorak rifle tightly. His heartbeat was steady, controlled. The Vorak patrol advanced, their glowing armor casting eerie reflections against the wreckage. They moved cautiously, weapons raised, scanning the area. He could hear them speaking. The words were foreign, but their body language told him everything. They knew someone was still alive, and they were closing in. Rourke's eyes flicked to the belt of explosives at his waist. A plan formed. If he could funnel them into the canyon pass, he could use the unstable Vorak power cores as makeshift bombs, turn their technology against them. He moved swiftly, planting the explosives along the pass, their blinking indicators barely visible in the dim light. Then, using the flare gun, he fired a single shot into the sky. The Vorak reacted instantly, their guttural voices rising in alarm as they rushed toward the source. Rourke waited. One stepped into the pass, then another, then a third. He pressed the detonator. The explosion tore through the night, a deafening roar that shook the ground beneath him. Fire and shrapnel consumed the Vorak soldiers, their bodies flung against the canyon walls like broken marionettes.